In this chapter, I'm going to be creating a WordPress site from start to finish. I'm going to put all the theory that we've discussed in previous chapters into practice to show you how it's done, step by step, from start to finish, from installation to publishing. And there's a few steps we need to get started with installation, which is our first step. We need to create a database. We need to create a database user. We need to give that user permissions to the database. Then we'll upload our WordPress files with an FTP client or using upload functions found in your hosting environment. Then we'll visit the URL at which we just uploaded WordPress. WordPress is smart enough to know whether or not it's been installed, and when we visit that URL, it will give us a chance to install it. And once we're there, all we have to do is follow instructions. So, to create the database, I'm going to be using cPanel, which is a very common hosting environment. We'll scroll down to the databases part, click MySQL databases, and we'll create a database. We'll call it VTC. Add that database, and now we will create a user called VTC. And we'll generate a password because this always generates good passwords. Whoops. And now we will need to add the user to the database. So we'll click Add. We'll click All Privileges. Make changes, and now our database is set up. It's ready to be populated with WordPress schema. So now we're going to go over to our WordPress page, and we're greeted with an error. There doesn't seem to be a wp-config.php file. I need this before we can get started. That's fine. The wp-config.php file is not generated until after you install. So we'll create a configuration file. It tells us what we need, but we already know we need the database name, username, password, and host. And let's go. The database name is VTC. And the user is the same, so we'll just copy that. Grab the password. Localhost is normally acceptable for the database host. There are some hosting environments where you're given a specific database host to use, so you should be aware of that if you're using one of those hosting environments. GoDaddy is known for using a different database host, as is Rackspace, I believe. So there's our information here, so let's click Submit and run the install. And it will ask us for some things. Site title, let's call it Gardens of Eden, because we're still making a gardening website, but we want to put a little more thought into our name and all that now. So we'll also change the username. This is very important. I've showed you ways that you could do that with plugins, but if you do it here, you won't have to use a plugin later. So let's choose a username of Groundskeeper. That should be easy to remember. And enter a password. And we'll put in our email. And also, we will allow search engines to index this site, because we want this site to be public, and we like it, and we want people to know about it. So let's install WordPress. And it's done. We can now log in. And there we go. There is WordPress. That is the easiest way to install WordPress, the only way to install WordPress. And that just shows you how easy it is to get started. Now, in our next videos, we will continue on talking about how to actually create a site and getting things in place for a live push of this site.